Welcome back to Fuchs Around and Call Them Out. I'm your host, Ben Fuchs.
I'm your co-host, Alex Cal.
And we're going to go through a 20-point checklist for what you need to make sure you are doing in 2026. So let's jump right in. So 20 points, let's move as fast as we possibly can. Let's start with income, cash flow, and budgeting. Where do we begin?
Sure. So the first thing would be, hey, let's review what happened last year, right? Where was it a steady, hey, every month is kind of the same, or are there some big months? That way we can create a new budget for this year and at least give us a starting point to go off of.
Every time I remember really trying to budget when I was 18, 20, 22, trying any kind of money, I was like, all right, I would get everything like right tight to the line. I would say I'd give myself, $6 for lunch, and I would try to make sure I was under that and that I had change, because I would keep those little manila envelopes. I was a little bit of a psychopath. And then no matter what I did, there was always something that was like killing the budget, right? I have a flat tire, so all of a sudden that's now I need 4 new tires. And at that point, I couldn't afford 4 new tires. I had to get 4 used tires, but they work. What do we do?
At least you got tired.
Right. How does that work in?
Every month there's always something, right? I do account for a little miscellaneous, right? The one-off that happens. And the point of the budget is just to know where your spending is. So you are being deliberate with your money. The idea is, well, hey, if an expense pops up, that's life. That's not, okay, hey, the whole thing is trash, let's throw it out, let's never do it again. It's just, okay, well, let's just plan and move forward.
Well, and I remember it was now 10 years ago. It was 2016 when I got my CFP, which is horrifying. But number one, the top thing was budget. Everything starts with a budget. Budgeting is everything. And if you don't have that, that's when you really start to fall off.
Mm-hmm. And so kind of going into that, well, hey, if that expense happens, that's what the emergencies fund is for, right? Hey, we pull from there, we continue on like normal.
Got it.
The first thing for the year, though, is, hey, let's revisit that. Do we need to replenish? Is that a priority?
Sure.
And then, of course, if it is, hey, let's figure out how much we can allocate to that to replenish back to the 3 to 6 months. And then, hey, let's continue on with the budget.
Got it.
Let's then reallocate somewhere else. But it's fluid. It's not stagnant.
It's not stagnant. So I don't have to feel like a jerk if I spent a little bit more than okay. Got it.
But I know that's kind of like the main things for cash flow and income, but taxes, always a fun tax year, right?
Yeah. I mean, taxes kind of are no fun. And then, we may have in the beginning of 2025 had one calculation, and then they changed the laws midway through. And so all of a sudden we had to reassess. So number one bullet point for when it comes to taxes and required distributions is they have to calculate your projected tax bracket. That's kind of a big deal. And if you're in a state like ours in Connecticut, where you have a fair amount of state taxes, you want to make sure that you understand where the thresholds are, right? Where do I want to kind of butt up against but not go over, so I'm not paying additional taxes? But one, we want to calculate your projected tax bracket. And then two, within this, once you understand your parameters, then you can run a Roth conversion analysis, right? Where can I move money over? Where can I pay taxes now, but not push myself to a higher bracket, or not push myself to where I have penalties or additional state taxes, right? So it's important to understand what those are. And with that said, there are plenty of times where we make recommendations that people go way over any kind of penalties or state taxes, but you have to do that with eyes open. So that's number 2 for that section is to run a Roth conversion analysis. And then number 3 is update your tax withholding. I think the least favorite thing for any of our clients is when they undercalculate what they have to withhold, and then all of a sudden they have to write a big check at the end.
Right. Especially now with them being a little more strict with those penalties and interest.
Yeah, which is, how many times has the state been like, oh, you did a Roth conversion and you owe us money? So one of the reasons that we have an accountant now is so people can do their quarterly spending, they can pay their quarterly taxes when they do a conversion like that. If not, right, how many times have you seen a client being like, oh, I have to pay interest?
Right. Yeah, or a penalty on top.
Right. And then if you pushed off your RMD, like if you were supposed to take it in 2025, and now you have to take it by April 1st of this year, we have to make sure that we take that into account when we do that, right? We have to account for that higher RMD and make sure that we're all set. So we had a client that when the Affordable Care Act actually gave a subsidy, way back when last year, had our client taken his required distribution, taken that income, it would have pushed them over a threshold, and they would have had to pay, instead of a couple $100 a month, like an extra $1,000 a month for the cost of healthcare, which is crazy. So what he did was he pushed his RMD out to this year so that the income wasn't shown in the previous year, and that way they could still get the subsidy, which is totally legal, and just have to pay extra taxes this year. But that extra tax this year is going to cost them way less than losing the subsidy would have last year. So it's one of those things that we need to plan for, and we always kind of take into account when we're doing this type of concept. So
You did say legal, not illegal.
no, completely and totally legal. You are allowed to push off your RMD. If you're supposed to take it in 2026, you could theoretically wait until 2027 as long as it's taken by April 1st. But you would then have to take 2 in 2027. So we got to be careful there. When it comes to investments and portfolio health, Alex, what do we need to take into account?
Yeah, so it's always, hey, are there any big skews that we've seen, right? If we only want to own 5% of one company and now it's at 9, because, hey, it's grown a lot, which is a good thing, right? Okay, hey, let's probably sell some of that to kind of get back into range so we're not taking a ton of risk, right? And how do we do that? Well, we want to probably do that slowly so we're not taking a huge tax hit. Or are we doing anything like tax loss harvesting throughout the year to at least have some losses to offset that? At the same time, try not to time the market. We've run into a big issue there of, well, hey, now is a good time. Well, how do you know?
Right.
Things could be completely different in a week.
You can tell me what's going to happen tomorrow. That's news to me.
I'll take it, right?
Yeah, right. That sounds great.
So we definitely want to make sure that we're staying on top of that because we just don't want to be taking too much risk, right? So the idea is, hey, let's review it, make sure we're in the right positions, especially if, hey, we're seeing some momentum and it's in the growth sector.
Right.
Okay, we probably don't want dividends, right? We probably want to follow what's going to make the most money for us.
Right.
At the same time, well, hey, if we are seeing that continue to get overvalued, great, well, let's take some of that risk off the table now. So we keep some of the gains. Yeah, we'll pay some of the taxes, but I'll prefer to keep more of the money, right?
And there's a balance there. I think that there are a lot of times that we'll say, if we're in a traditional portfolio money manager, and we're in a 60-40 portfolio, right? 60% of your money is in stocks and 40% is in bonds. Well, we have to keep those parameters, right? We can't let it go to 80% stocks and 20% bonds. Then we're kind of doing the wrong thing. One of the things that Alex and I talk about, and we kind of go back and forth on together, is allocating what we need for safe, allocating what we need for a monthly income. And then if there is growth, and if that growth is in an after-tax bucket, we may be able to let some of those things that have gone up a lot stay going up. We don't always have to pull off the table. And that's why we don't automatically rebalance, and we don't automatically rebalance our portfolios. We do that on a portfolio by portfolio basis for our clients when it's after-tax money. Because the last thing that anybody wants, going back to my section earlier,
surprise tax bill there.
Surprise tax bill.
Especially when it wasn't talked about.
Right. And so I think, what was the next? Oh, stress testing your investments. Do you want to tell them how we do that?
Sure. So anytime we want to look at, well, hey, are we okay from retirement, right? We want to throw thousands of scenarios of what can happen in the market, right? What have we seen happen? Like a 2008, for example. Hey, if that were to happen as soon as you retire, does it break everything instantly, or hey, are we okay? And we want to try to avoid that, right? So making sure kind of, hey, if we pulled from safety, okay, are we replenishing that at this time? Or hey, are we looking at an alternative that might do something similar because of, hey, we want to buy a house this year, or we know that school's ending, tuition's up. Okay, so we just want to continue to adjust so that we're doing what you want us to do, right? We meet all the goals.
Right.
That's the idea.
No argument for me. I'm with you.
Especially if you don't want it to go down in value and now we don't have enough tuition money.
Well, it's no big deal if you don't have enough money to pay for school. We just, hope for the best. Right. And the last bullet point is reviewing alternative income strategies.
Yeah. So, hey, are we still in the thing to be the most efficient, right? Whether that be on the growth side, hey, are we following what makes the most money? Or from an income perspective, hey, is this thing going to push out the most income to us on a monthly basis? Are there better things with less risk or
which is a constant struggle, right? Because I think, I, you're always, I wouldn't say second guessing, but you're always researching alternatives, right? What else could be out there that could, not just for the individual, but for our clients, what can we do that can generate more income, right? One of the reasons that we tend to use things called structured notes a lot is because we can get about 8% after our fee, as opposed to like a 4 or 5% after the bonds. Now, doesn't mean it's right for everybody, and doesn't mean that everybody should do it, but for a lot of our clients, they like it because we can generate a fair amount of interest and not touch their principal. If there was something better out there, we'd be excited to try it.
Yeah. Hey, it would probably come up every month when we go to look, right?
Every single month,
We'd
every single
hope.
time. Yeah, it feels like every 2 weeks.
Yeah. And if not, I'd be like, well, why aren't we using this?
Right. Yeah, which is the point, man, because thankfully, we need checks and balances here. All right. So next in our kind of category is retirement timing and income planning. So when it comes to retirement planning, and I will tell you, it feels like every time I have a client that's ready to retire, they'll pick a date, and let's call it April of 2026. And then you meet with them in February of 2026. And like, hey, man, we decided to push that out a little bit. And now it's going to be December, or it's going to be January of the next year. Or, we don't get our bonus unless we're here on this day, or we don't get the
Profit sharing.
Yeah, right. I mean, so it's always interesting to kind of look at, and it's okay to make a target and have it be a moving target and readjust. But we like to be in the loop on all that stuff to make sure that we know when to turn on the income, right? When does that need to hit? When do we need to plan for it? So, rerunning that retirement income projection. Also, if you ran this originally like 5 years ago, your expenses were probably a lot lower than they are now. I know that our expenses are a lot lower than they were. I mean, a lot lower than they were 5 years ago than they are now. Although that might have been the time when I had 2 kids in daycare. But generally speaking, everything else that we buy on a consistent basis has gone up in price. So we need to rerun that income projection because we have to rerun our expenses. And then the other thing is, when it comes to retirement, is evaluating employer plan contributions. So we look at a couple things: RSUs, restricted stock units, 83B elections. You just took a test on this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So tell everybody what an 83B election is. For those that have not already tuned out and had their eyes glossed over, if I say something like 83B, I'm immediately out. But it's interesting for people to have restricted stock or a lot of money in one particular company.
Right. So for those of you who aren't aware of an 83B, think of this as we are paying taxes up front. And so why would we do that? Well, the idea is, hey, if these stock units that you're getting from your employer are going to go up, or they're going to hit these metrics, we know that they're going to be higher in value down the road. So if we can pay less tax on that, this just says, well, hey, we'll pay the tax now. So whatever it grows to is now going to be at the favorable rate rather than all income. So that just gives us a nice little bit of less taxes, which I don't think anyone usually gets mad about.
But it's hard in the moment, right? Like today, it's like, oh yeah. No, I conceptually, Alex, I totally agree with you. But I don't want to pay the taxes on that.
I don't want to
now.
write that
Right,
check.
yeah, that doesn't sound great at all. It's almost like doing a Roth conversion. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying philosophically, but when it comes to actually moving the money out of my bank account to make it happen, I don't necessarily want that. But on our side, what we see constantly is people that have had these stock units and they've had them forever, or they've had these stock, and they don't pay the taxes up front. They take the ordinary income, right? They don't take advantage of the capital gains portion of it. They take the ordinary income portion, and they could have saved themselves tens of thousands of dollars. Now the problem becomes, do you have faith in your company? I'm calling you out. If you don't, that's okay. But if you have faith in your company and you're going to hold this for 10, 15, 20 years, we can assume it's going to be higher 10, 15, 20 years from now than it is today. But there is a certain amount of angst that goes into that. Next up in our sections are healthcare and insurance. What do we need to be doing at the beginning of the year to make sure we're taking care of that?
Sure. So the first thing is, if you are planning to retire, let's coordinate when we need to switch you to a different insurance, right? The idea is, or the last thing we ever want to run into is you don't have insurance, because then that's usually when you need to go to the doctor or you go to the hospital or something happens, right? So especially with, HSA contributions, we definitely want to stop those 6 months ahead of applying for Medicare.
Why?
Because you will get a penalty and have to take the money out.
But nobody told me about this. What do you mean? That's not
I'm
fair.
telling you now.
Oh, okay, great.
No one ever talks about it,
Never,
right? Half of
never.
these concepts you're not going to ever learn about unless you're on Reddit for whatever reason, or you meet someone at a library, or you hear something on the radio, or you're in the grocery store and someone's talking to some random person.
Right. Yeah, and then you have to fact check that because the other 98 things that they said are not true.
Right.
But this is one of those things that catches a lot of people off guard, and they should be taking it. So say it again.
So 6 months ahead of applying for Medicare, whether that's 65 or if you're before with disability, stop contributing to your HSA. They will have you take out the excess and there will be a slight penalty associated. The other thing would just be, hey, if we have any insurance policies, right? Whether that be homeowners insurance, auto insurance, umbrella insurance, life insurance, let's check those, right? Especially if you got a new roof. I know that's the biggest thing right now with homeowners insurance. If we have a new one, let's reshop that. Let's see if we can get a better price. Can we bundle and save? Sometimes no, right?
Was that part of an ad? It felt like part of an ad.
I don't sell insurance.
I don't
sell out of it. Home.
We better get advertising dollars. Anyway.
Get a little banner at the bottom.
Yeah. You know what? For those people that are looking to advertise on Fuchs and call them out, please contact Brandon Holland. And if you don't want to advertise, feel free to just send him hate mail. We're okay with that.
We're okay with that, yeah.
We enjoy that piece. All right. Moving down on the list. So for healthcare insurance, we had to check your HSA contributions and then make sure, again, that you audit all of your insurance policies. If we're moving on to like the estate, legal, and legacy planning part of this, we want to confirm a few things. One, confirm your beneficiaries on all of your accounts. If you have recently gotten a divorce and you no longer want your ex-spouse to be on your plan and get your money when you die, change your beneficiary. Just throwing it out there. And if, unfortunately, when you started your retirement plan 30 years ago and you put your parents as the beneficiary and they should no longer be the beneficiary, check them, make sure that they're up to date. We don't want the money going to the wrong place if something happens. 2, review your estate tax exposure, especially relevant for people in Connecticut. What is your estate tax? And estate tax isn't necessarily, what you would pay to the federal government for having too much money. It is what are the implications of you passing on and your relatives inheriting your 401k, your IRA. What are they going to have to pay? How much are they going to have to take out? And at what tax bracket are they going to have to pay those taxes on if that is important to you? And if it's not, don't worry about it. But if it is, you should definitely look into that and make that calculation and understand it. Number 3, again, if you don't have a legacy plan, you need to create one. And if it is outdated, you need to refresh it. If you created your will and trust when you had 1 child and you now have 3, you should probably refresh your estate plan. If you made your will when you had 3 children but didn't have 6 grandchildren and now you do, you should probably refresh it. You might want to change where you want your money going. And, we don't want something as simple as paperwork affecting where your money goes. All right. Last piece, you want to take it home with organization, security, and planning?
Absolutely. So the last thing is just if you work with an advisor, which I would argue everyone should.
I mean, I feel like we may be a little bit biased on this one.
A little bit.
Okay.
At least me.
Yeah. No, they should all work with you. I would work with you too if I could. Unfortunately, I have to work with myself and I get lesser.
That's okay.
Please.
But we should always be meeting to review everything at the same time. Right? Whether that be taxes, whether that be retirement, whether that be just the investments, or any questions you have. The idea is we want to stay on top of it and we want you to be involved. The idea is so you have a better understanding of your situation and what is going on. The idea is you should be involved. Not to, hey, the day-to-day of what investments are we choosing, but rather, I kind of know where things are.
Right. And I look at this like I would look at me working on a car. I know nothing about a car, but I need to understand when I need to change my oil and when I need to change my gas and not be stranded on the side of the road because something broke. And, if it's winter time and I don't have any windshield fluid, I'm going to have a pretty tough time when I can't see while I'm trying to drive. So I don't need to know how the engine works to make sure that everything is working properly. And in retirement, it's the same thing, especially when it comes to goal setting. Like if you're 2 years away from retirement, you know how important that is. If you're 20 years away from retirement, you have to understand that it's still incredibly important, because the way that you set goals for retirement and the way that you set your savings goals are going to have a huge impact now as opposed to later. So we want to make sure that you're on the right course for retirement. And that's why, we talk about, what is our tagline? Planning without pressure. Is that what we talked about? It's probably trademarked. We're working on it. But
We shouldn't have said it before we did, but
whatever. But planning without pressure, we do that because we want to help put people into a better position for retirement. You call us, you get a free consultation. That doesn't mean that we need to manage your money. It doesn't mean we need to charge you a fee, but we can take a look at where you are and see what we can do to put you in a better place for retirement. Anything else you want to add, sir?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Look forward to seeing you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Fuchs and Cal Out. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like on the video and hit the subscribe button so you get notified when we upload our next episode.